Hello and welcome. And on today's episode, I'm going to share with you how yes, yours truly became a life coach. Now let's go back all the way to my childhood. And before we do that, go grab a cup of Java, a cup of tea, and find a relaxing place to sit because this is going to be a story. So picture me. I'm growing up on the East Coast. I've got an older brother, a younger brother, and yes, I am the middle child. I had no idea what I wanted to do when I grew up, but I did love horses. Yes, I was horse crazy. I joined the horseback riding club when I got to high school, and I never looked back. However, what you don't know is that I'm very, very allergic to horses. So that dream did not last long. I was so sick that eventually we made the connection between riding horses and the sneezing and the wheezing. And we decided, yep, she definitely has an allergy to horses. So then what? Well, I went to high school. And I loved learning. I was one of those kids that loved school. I also loved the challenges that came along with school. And of course, let's not forget, I was somewhat of, yes, a social butterfly. I loved the friends that I had in high school, and I am still friends with many of the people that I met in high school. So when I was in high school, I really excelled at languages. I spoke Spanish, I spoke French, I studied both of those subjects, and I really enjoyed them. So when it came to making a decision about university, I definitely went to the arts, and I studied both Spanish and French, and I received a bachelor's in both languages. I also took a year of Portuguese, so I do speak some Portuguese. Now, fast forward to 4 years later, I graduated with a bachelor's in arts with a specialization in French and Spanish. And then I thought, now what? Well, what you don't know was that I had been squirreling away money for the last 4 years so that I could take this amazing epic trip to Europe. And I'll tell you more about that trip in another episode. So there I was in Europe with a backpack on my own, wanting to see the world. I visited museums, I went to historical sites, I met tons of people along the way, and it was a fabulous, fabulous trip. One of the highlights of my life, actually. Meanwhile, my friends at home, some of them are traveling, and most of them are either working or they're working on their masters. They've all gone back to school. So 2 years later, when I show up again, I'm thinking, maybe it's time to join the workforce. But what am I going to do with my bachelor's in arts? And this is a question that a lot of people ask themselves. What do you do with a bachelor's in arts where you specialize in French and Spanish? So I looked at my life, and what popped into my mind were a couple of things. I had spent a summer in New York visiting one of my best friends, Sarah, who was at the Parsons School of Design. She was in the garment industry and she loved it. And right near her place, there was the United Nations. So of course, one of the options I thought was, I could become this super powerful, translator interpreter, and I could negotiate conversations between really powerful people. I'll get to meet famous people. I'll get to say that I was in these really awesome conversations. And the reality of being a translator interpreter is that typically in those times, in those days, you are actually behind a booth with headphones on and you're translating for different leaders at the United Nations. There was very little contact, if any, with those leaders. And you weren't really required or supposed to have a personality. You kind of just translated and interpreted in a very kind of monotone way of speaking. And I thought to myself, it sounds kind of boring. In addition, to actually get my certificate that allowed me to become a certified translator interpreter, that would mean that I would have to go back to Ottawa and study at one of the only universities in Canada that provided this certification. I spoke to a friend of mine who did the program. She got her certification. She did the job for a couple of years and she was like, you know what? wasn't quite for me. She went back to school and she became a lawyer. So I thought, that's probably not it for me. The second option I had was going into like hotel management and the tourism industry. So I applied for a program at the British Columbia Institute of Technology. I was accepted and I thought, maybe this is something that I'd like to do. So going into hotel and tourism was definitely an option. The other thing that I thought of was I could go back to university and get my bachelor's in education, specializing in French and Spanish, and become a teacher. I love learning. I love school. I love the social aspects. I'd be bringing up like the next world leaders on our planet who might find a cure for cancer or finally create world peace. And that was super inspiring and motivating for me. So out of those three choices, I went back to school and I got my bachelor's in education. In 1990, and please do not do the math, in 1990, I started my career as a French teacher, then branched out in working also as a Spanish teacher at the high school level. I did that for over a decade. And you know what? I loved the work. It was super interesting. The kids were super challenging. At the high school level, you're working with teenagers. So you know what I'm talking about when I say it was super challenging. The other thing was that although I enjoyed the work and I loved learning and I loved teaching people languages and I found the job really rewarding, there was something missing, the presence of which would have made a real difference. It was like, I kind of find my life purpose, but it's just not quite my life purpose. Like there's something off about it. So I did a lateral move and I became a skills teacher. And a skills teacher works with kids with designations and who have learning challenges. That was really interesting work. And again, I grew out of that and thought, something is still missing. Then I made another lateral move and I was a career planning teacher. Really enjoyed preparing kids for the workforce, working on their resumes, what they might be interested in doing when they graduated from high school. I grew out of that and I thought, something's still missing. Like I enjoy the work, but there's still something not quite in alignment with my life's purpose. And then I went back to university to do my certification in counseling psychology. I received my certification and then I got to work as an area counselor in a high school. And that was super interesting work because kids would be talking to me about conflicts, who they had crushes on, who was dating who. They'd come to me to ask me how to break up with people, how to make up with people. And there were lots of tears and giggles in my office. It was a great job. And this may be a surprise to you, there was still something missing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've done so many different things in the education system. What is it that I'm supposed to be doing in my life? I was so committed to finding my life purpose. Like, I know I'm close. I know it has something to do with working with people. I know it has something to do with sharing my knowledge with people, empowering people. Fast forward many years later, decades in fact, and you'd see me taking a 6-month course where I get access to a coach. And that experience made a profound difference on empowering myself in every area of my life. I had the opportunity to work with a coach to identify all the areas in my life that were working, all the areas in my life that were just not working, and make a difference in those areas of life that just weren't working, as well as elevating those areas where things were working. That experience made a profound difference in my life. And that's where the seed of becoming a life coach was planted. When the program finished 6 months later, I was invited to join the coaching group, and I got to work with a group of people and be a coach to them through the program. And that was even more amazing because I saw what a difference I could make with people who are out to live a life that they love and to live it powerfully. And with those two events, I had my aha moment. In the moment that I worked with a coach and then became a coach, it became super clear to me that the universe was poking me, saying, this is it, right? Like, that search that you've been doing for your life purpose, this is actually it. And I know that you didn't think you were going to become a life coach. And here you are, life coach. And in your role as a life coach, you are free, you are powerful, and you are fully engaged with the people. In other words, it's kind of like me being a life coach had me discover my ability to fully express every aspect of who I am in that work. And that's what has me say that it is my life purpose. To say that that discovery was profound is an understatement. In fact, when I'm just hearing myself talk about it, I get very moved, touched, and inspired by the discovery that I made in my role as a life coach and the difference that it made for not only myself and my life, and also the people that I coached. And every day I get up in the morning and it's a brand new day where I get to make a contribution to others so they can fulfill on what matters to them. Not only that, they get to go beyond what they currently see as possible for themselves and their lives through my exceptional coaching services. And that puts a smile on my face every day, like no other work that I've done in my life. And I'm so grateful that I discovered my life purpose. It has me be whole and perfect and complete in life. So thank you for taking this journey on how I discovered my life purpose. And I invite each and every one of you to take a look at your life, identify what's working in your current career, what's not working, or what's not working as well as you'd like it to. And I invite you to work with a life coach to discover what is possible for you. I am fundamentally convinced that everybody's right on this planet is to discover their life purpose. It just might take some coaching to get there for some of us. And was it worth it? Absolutely. Remember that for my whole life, I've been teaching and taking professional and personal development courses, 5 a year, in fact. So you do the math. I've been working since 1990, and I have been taking 5 development courses per year. And I got to say, none of those courses, none of those leaders in the field that they were sharing with us, whether it be classroom management, whether it be self-regulation, whether it be how to powerfully navigate yourself through the school system, whether it be self-care, none of those workshops had or made the difference that working with a life coach did for me. And that is all she wrote. So thank you for joining us on this episode. And I look forward to what I'm going to be talking to you about in my next episode.